Well, hello everyone. Let's get started with today's webinar. Welcome to today's webinar, which is all about building a business case for your next library system. I've called it Pitch Perfect and I've gone with a bit of a sports theme, so let's see what you think. My name is Susanna and I am the marketing manager here at Softlink IC. Today is all about helping libraries position for a new integrated library management system, or ILS. Positioning for it via a business case as a strategic investment and securing buy-in from leadership and key decision makers. So today's webinar will help you understand more about building a business case for your next library system. And in our webinar today, we'll cover the following: what a business case must achieve, how you go about understanding priorities, how you actually frame the problem that you're facing, presenting your new system as a strategic solution, digging a little deeper into the difference between cost versus value. And of course, we'll have a look at a layout for that business case once you've had a bit of a chance to gather all of the information that you need. And we've got 30 minutes to do it. So let's get going. Now, before we kick off, let's have a bit of a think. Is it you or is it your pitch? If you've joined this webinar today, I'm going to go out on a limb and suggest that you already know your system isn't working. It's not up to scratch. It's probably not giving you what you want. Is it time for a change? Now, to be clear, this webinar isn't going to be about features or vendors. It's about getting your leadership teams, your key decision makers, to see what you probably already know. By the end of this session, you will have a simple framework that you can use to build a business case to get you to yes. Well, that's my plan anyway. So before we get into the meat of it though, if you joined our first session, our earlier session, which we called Time to Switch, this is your next step. So from recognizing the need for change to actually getting that approval through your business case. Now, in that webinar, we helped you work out if the real problem was you or your system. We looked at what was pushing libraries to the edge and the hidden costs of staying put with your existing solution. We talked about what to consider before making a move, who to involve, and how the change process really works. We also covered some common mistakes to avoid and how to make your transition smooth. We wrap that webinar up with some practical next steps for you to decide if it is the time to change. I can really recommend that you have a bit of a look at that webinar. You can access the recording of that earlier webinar using this QR code, but do that later. Right now, I hope you're sticking with me. So let's get started and have a look at what every business case that wins must deliver. Creating a good business case isn't about frustration or getting those frustrations down on paper, even though you're probably immensely frustrated right now. It's about fit, focus, and future value. And thinking about it, when I was looking into what makes a good business case and how would it all come together, I was kind of thinking there are probably three non-negotiables for a successful business case. It needs to align with wider organizational goals. You need to justify the cost for that change. And lastly, you need to be able to de-risk the decision for your leadership team and your broader decision makers. So let's look at each of them in more detail. Non-negotiable number one. When we say align with organizational goals, what we mean is linking it to your strategic plans held by the organization. So, does the business have a digital first strategy? Is there a broader compliance driver? Or are there innovation goals that the organization is looking to achieve? So, in your business case, what you really need to try to do is show how it's good for the whole organization. Non-negotiable number two, justifying the cost. So, not just giving a list of features as part of that justification. Show quantifiable outcomes. And what do I mean? Well, they're on the screen there. Faster workflows, improved data accuracy, measurable service improvements. And we're going to get into more of that as we go on. Now, the last non-negotiable, number three, de-risk the decision. Now, I don't love this just for the alliteration with the de-risk the decision. What we're talking about here is removing uncertainty about the implementation of the new system, cost overruns, or staff resistance. Sometimes you just have to tackle the elephant in the room. And why not use your business case to address risks, name them, list them, but show how they're going to be mitigated as part of this process. Your goal with your business case, and by going through this process of petitioning or lobbying for a switch to your system, is to make that decision a no-brainer. You want to make your decision safe, sound, and of course, supported. So let's now look at translating library value into business language. So how do we think like a decision maker? What does leadership care about? Probably a bit obvious. Numbers, 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 not noise. It's probably a little bit obvious, but I'm putting it out there. In your business case, you want to focus on measurable outcomes, not frustrations. Even though, as we could all probably agree, you're pretty frustrated if you're looking to change systems. So, what are those measurable outcomes? Well, they look like ROI, return on investment. Measurable outcomes about risk, not making it risky, but actually showing how you are going to de-risk the situation. And measurable outcomes about efficiency. Priorities for leadership are metrics that matter. So ROI, or return on investment, looks like time saved, fewer workarounds, more output. A metric that matters around risk involves talking about things like security, continuity, vendor stability, all of which can be measured. Metrics around efficiencies. Talk about streamlined workflows, and don't just talk about them, measure them. Faster delivery. Your business case should address these metrics. In fact, you should be finding as many ways as you can to demonstrate them. Show value beyond the library for this change. So, how do you reframe the message? And by the message, I mean your pain points, your frustrations, the things that aren't working, and start demonstrating this or linking them to those metrics that we talked about previously: ROI, risk, and efficiency. So instead of talking about our system is clunky, which I'm sure it might be, what if you started reframing the message to say things like, staff lose hours each week? Even better if you could number the hours. To manual workarounds, reducing productivity and increasing costs. So notice how the shift changes the focus. We've changed our language and we've reframed the message. It's about the impact and the outcome of this problem, the clunky system. This one speaks to risk. So instead of saying reporting is a nightmare and cue the meme with the hair being pulled, of course, what if you reframed that to say something like, we can't access the insights leadership needs for planning and compliance, causing delays and risk? By being able to reframe this, what we're actually doing is making this a problem that sits outside the library. It's a problem that sits across the organisation. And I've got one more example. Let's look at efficiencies. It doesn't handle digital content well. I mean, sure, there's a lot of systems out there that just don't. So what if you reframed that message to say something like, we can't centralize digital resources. It limits discovery and accurate ROI reporting. You can actually capture and measure what it means when your current system can't handle digital content. So when you speak about the impact and its outcomes, you become part of the problem-solving conversation, and you're able to tie it back to metrics that matter. So at this point, I've probably gone a little bit fast. So let's just take a quick couple of seconds to reflect. What metrics do you think matter most to your leadership team, your key decision makers around purchasing a brand new library management system? Is it ROI? Is it risk? Efficiencies? All of these? Well, some of these. So let's move on and talk about defining those pain points. This is where you demonstrate that the problem is costing more than the solution. So in this next part, we will look at framing the problem in your business case so that leadership can't ignore it. We want to do it in a way that's useful though, and solutions focused. The core message you want to send via your business case is that the problem is bigger than the price of a new ILS, a brand new library management system. The problem is costing more than the current solution. And where do those costs sit? They sit in time, risk, and missed opportunities. If you can measure it, you can make it matter. Here are some examples of how you can do that. Reporting delays. 3 days a month are lost to data cleanup. Security issues. Failing our security audits due to outdated protocols in our current system. Workflow friction. New staff need a full day of training for basic tasks. Staff morale. There's a retention risk linked to frustrating processes, systems, and tools. Your business case should translate effectively the pain into risk, showing that it's not a library problem, it's a business problem. Efficiency losses lead to budget impacts, data gaps lead to decision-making risks, and a poor user experience leads to reputational and service failures. Framing the pain as a risk to success and not a nuisance is going to be one of the key shifts to make in the way that you pitch this business case. So, what do you think is one delay or frustration that's costing you the most time each month in your current system? Have a bit of a think about it. And while you're writing your business case, that might be the best place to start in terms of being able to accurately measure what matters. So far we've covered what a business case must achieve, understanding your priorities, and also framing that problem. So let's move on to showing your new system as a strategic solution and more. So you'll want your business case to show how it's not just a system upgrade, it's a strategic advantage and more. A modern library management solution unlocks productivity, compliance, and smarter knowledge use across your organisation. Your new integrated library system is a business enabler. It's going to drive real organisational impact with faster access to information, stronger data compliance and governance, less manual effort, which will lead to more output, and better user or patron, borrower, and stakeholder engagement and experiences. So this isn't about fixing library pain. It's about enabling organisational success. And that's a bit of a shift in the mindset that you'll need to make in order to get this business case up. You can also take the opportunity to build a little bit of FOMO here. Use your business case to show that others are already upgrading and it's been okay. Look for testimonials or references amongst your peers to show that the change is worth it. Law firms are increasing their research productivity. Government agencies are improving their service transparency. Corporate teams are powering innovation and insights. With a little bit of FOMO, you're probably going to attract a little more attention for that business case to be read all the way through. Remind yourself you're not the first and you're also not alone. And I guess if we want to get all TED talky, and maybe this is where if I was more technically capable, I'd probably cue a dramatic orchestral score, just like in the movies. Where you're going matters more than where you are. So this business case that you're creating and drafting should think of it in terms of transformation, not replacement of your current system. So let's look a little bit more at that ROI conversation. So how can we handle these ROI or return on investment conversations confidently? It's one of the metrics that we mentioned earlier. A good ILS doesn't just reduce spend. It creates capacity and reduces risk and improves outcomes. Cost conversations become a whole lot easier when value is crystal clear. And cost is never about the dollars. It's about outcomes. So really, the language you can start to use around this is, yes, it's an investment, but here's what it delivers. Let's look at 3 value pillars that you can use in your business case, presentation, or other key conversations. And they're up on the screen now. efficiency, risk reduction, and then also some intangibles. Be ready to show both one-off and ongoing costs as part of your business case and how they pay off in reduced administrative load or increased capacity. That first value pillar, efficiency. It's about automating manual tasks, reducing administrative overhead, freeing up staff for high value work. Think about turning the hours of the work into dollars saved. X hours per week is Y dollars saved annually. What a fantastic metric to be able to share. Second value pillar, risk reduction. Stronger security and compliance, modern data handling and audit trails, lowering exposure to outages or errors. Budget holders absolutely hate unmanaged risk. And this is your chance to lean into that as part of your business case. Third and final pillar, intangibles. Better staff morale, less turnover, faster access to information, resources, knowledge, better stakeholder outcomes. Now, that's stakeholders as in the decision makers who are spending the money, but also your users, patrons, or borrowers. An improved reputation for the library within the organisation. Soft return on investment, such as these intangibles, still matter. Happier users will support your case. So don't shy away from that phrase that we mentioned earlier. Yes, it is an investment, but this is what it delivers. Record, measure, or show both the upfront and ongoing costs and tie them into a measurable benefit. This business case is really your chance to show the capacity, the power, the value of changing your library management system. So let's have a look at how you're going to lay all of this out. How is this business case going to look? So the focus here is to make this business case easy to read and hard to ignore, should I say, dare I say. The best business cases that I've seen read like a strategy document. They are not a list of technical specifications. So you could structure your business case something like this. A one-page of outcomes, a one-page summary of outcomes, not features. Describe the current state. Include that measurable pain. What's the fix? How it fixes the problem and aligns with those broader organisational goals. Give clear, transparent costs. No surprises, and remember to include those one-off and ongoing costs as part of this section. This is where you're proactive. Name the elephant in the room. Don't be defensive in this area. Really think about how you're going to give those risks, but also showcase the mitigations. Explain how it's going to be better. And this is your ask. What do you want? A clear ask, and also, what does success look like? Use the recommendations section to really articulate that clearly. If your key decision maker, and that's your CEO, general manager, or executive director, can skim through this in a few minutes and understand the benefits, you have nailed it. Your business plan should be simple in its design, leading to a logical, easy approval. Don't use jargon. Don't use long paragraphs. and don't do a feature dump. It's not a document that's a technical specification of what you're looking for. This is a document that speaks to your decision makers about the value of the change. So I guess the bottom line is clarity is going to give you confidence. Clarity in your business case will show confidence in your proposed solution. And in that, you've got the metrics that matter. Well, here we are at the tail end of today's webinar. I hope in this very, very, very short space of time, I've helped you understand the value of building a business case for your next library system. We did that today by covering the following. We looked at what it needed to achieve, how you understand the priorities, getting your head around framing the problem a little bit differently, presenting that as a strategic solution, looking at cost versus value, because it is all about that language shift. And then we had a bit of an overview on what it could look like when you laid it all out. So let's look at your next steps. So I'm really hoping after today and maybe reviewing the webinar that we also did earlier, you now have a bit of a framework to make a compelling leadership ready case. Are you ready to dive in? And by the way, have you loved my sporting link type analogies? I was pretty pleased with how it all turned out. You know the need, you have the metrics, and now you've got a bit of an insight into speaking leadership's language. So really, the next move is yours. You already know that your system needs to change. And if you watched our earlier webinar, that should have been a no-brainer. So now maybe you've got a clear pathway to explain why in the language that leadership listens to. You can define the pain. You can show the cost of doing nothing. You can position a modern system as a smart, strategic move for the whole organisation. Use the structure that we covered. Have a go. Keep it focused on outcomes. Make the decision safe, sound, and supported. You've already convinced yourself, so now you can convince them. And when you're ready, the business case template that we'll send as part of our link to this recording will help you turn all of this into a document that gets you to yes. Well, that's the plan anyway. As I mentioned, we'll share a business case template with the recording of this webinar. And if you'd like to use it or use it as the basis for your business plan, please feel free. Thank you so much for joining us today. And if you have any questions at all about today's webinar, you can use the QR code on your screen to get in touch. Or if you've got any questions about how we could help you switch systems, please feel free to get in touch. Thank you again, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.